Hey, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am very sorry for keeping you waiting for so long. We are going to start today's meeting, and I request you, Wycliffe, to play the presentation. You're my what? You're my partner today, so please play just click play. Go back to the first slide and click play. Place down quickly, down the. Now move the cursor down. No. Yeah, that one, yes. That one, yeah. Great. Thank you very much, Wycliffe. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Christopher Mulindwa. That's where I work. I am also a technical support for science, and I am also managing the distribution of choice genetics breed lines in Uganda. So we are starting up an online coaching online coaching sessions for pig farmers that are going to be running from today until the first week of July. These engagements are paid for by some people, but there are those who might not wish to pay, or might, I don't know, for any reason. So I want to make sure that at least majority of the people access some of these trainings for the good of the sector, the understanding and the profitability of our pig farming enterprises. So today we're going to be looking at setting up a pig farming business. This is a good training for beginners, but of course, even though you've been in the business, it is also important that you get to, understand and maybe revise whatever that you have learned, you have set up, and see that you make everything collect for the profitability of your pig farming enterprise. Wycliffe?
Yes.
Another slide, please. We are partners, you'll be scrolling. Great. So we are going to be...
It's okay.
Yeah, thank you. The pig farming business in general has about three main revenue sources, and they are the three main businesses that you can set up. This includes the breeding business, the fattening business, the Boar business. Some people can combine the three, but others may choose to only set up one of these businesses. So these three businesses make up the pig farming business. And some people think that pig farming is all about producing pork alone. Yes, the sole purpose of rearing pigs is producing pork. And by the way, all the different nodes of these businesses are aimed at pork production, but they are independent businesses. You can decide to only breed the pigs. You can decide to only fatten the pigs. You can decide to only set up a boar stall. So, and you can decide to set up all of them all together. So if you're starting up a pig farming business, or if you have the idea of one day setting up a pig farming business, these are the different businesses to look at. You can either set up a breeding business independently, set up a fattening, or call it a finishing business separately, or set up a boar stall business independently, or combine the three businesses together. Wycliffe, whenever I keep quiet, you scroll to the next slide, please. Okay, so for those who just joined us, I just failed to share my screen. So Wycliffe is my partner today, though a participant, but is sharing the screen from, sharing the presentation from his end, and I'm able to access it from here. So calling him, I shouldn't bother you. We are trying to be in connection with my work partner today. So this is the breeding business. And I think I should even reduce the pace at which I'm speaking so that we can understand what I'm talking about here. The breeding business is can be further divided into different businesses if you wish to. And like you're seeing on the pyramid, we have the nucleus. So in most countries, these nucleuses, we call them nuclear farm, the nucleus farms. Farms that host the nucleus of the sector. So for them, their role is to deal in purebred animals. They try to improve them, make them better. These are things that we will talk more about during the session on genetics. So make sure that you don't miss. But this is not a business. Nucleus farms, a nuclear farm is not a business for every farmer. Not every farmer can invest in such a business. In some countries, this is done by the government. So the government controls the quality of genetics in a country. So they manage the purebred animals, ensure that they are of good quality, ensure that they are selected over the traits, the characteristics that are unwanted in the sector. For example, if the animals are overfatted, for those who enjoy reading about pigs, and probably the articles that I write, in the 70s, the 80s, the size of the back fat layer was very big. But thanks to the geneticians, who are the main guys at the nucleus farms, who have bred the animals to a stage where the back fat layer is very small. The litter sizes were very small. Today we have huge litter sizes, to a maximum of 25 piglets per litter. Growth wasn't good. Now we are able to sell a pig at more than 100 kilograms live weight in only 24 weeks. So all this is done by these geneticians at nucleus farms. And this is why I'm telling you that this is not a business for everybody. It's a business for specialized people. And in some countries, this is a sole business for the government. Like we have the Nagrik here, the Nagrik would be the guys to have the nucleus for our breed lines. Unfortunately, it is not in Uganda, and it is not elsewhere in East Africa. So in other countries, there are companies, genetic companies, that also have nucleus farms for their own breed lines. There are many genetic companies in the world that are doing that. And we have none in Uganda, though we have some in Africa, and they are in South Africa. So from the nucleus herd, an average breeder can go and buy purebreds. Now that is the multiplier. You buy the purebreds and crossbreed. Okay. Please don't unmute so that you don't interfere with the meeting. So as you can see, I don't know if you can point at the purebreds. So the purebreds come from the nucleus farms. So when they come to the multipliers, they produce the hybrids. These hybrids are commonly used as parent stock. So the hybrids, most importantly, the crosses of Landless and Yorkshire, all call it large white. So a combination, a hybrid, which is 50% Yorkshire and 50% Landless, makes up the parent stock. Parent stock, I mean the pigs that are supposed to produce pigs for fattening. So that becomes the role of multipliers. Like some of you who are importing pigs from Zambia, from South Africa, from Europe, what you import in are hybrids, and you import them from multiplier farms. So those farms will have maybe a landless boar or landless boars and Yorkshire females, sows, cross them and sell the offspring as parent stock to farmers who are intending to produce pigs for slaughter. I hope I'm understood. Okay, so when they sell those hybrids, they come down there to what we call the conventional herds, and those are the parent stock herds. The herds that have hybrids, where you use a terminal boar to produce pigs for fattening. If I'm not understood, you'll have a chance to ask questions. So I hope, but I want to hope that you've really understood. And from the hybrids, like you can see down there on number 3, you produce the fattening stock. So that fattening stock is what you take to the market for slaughter. So the breeding system of pigs was made in such a way that it doesn't work backwards. From the nucleus, the animal should go until slaughter. So reproducing any animal in that line will lead to production of genetically weaker animals, animals whose hybrid vigor is less than what would have been expected. So you can't come from up going from down going upwards. It should be from up down, and nothing used down should be. We are recording the meeting on YouTube, in my YouTube channel. I have seen your message, so don't worry about that. You can be able to view it again, and I'll share it on Facebook and other platforms. I'm also, yes, I'm not recording on Zoom. So I think you understand. And if you don't, we will revisit it and you try to understand. I think we are ready to go to another slide. Okay, now let's talk about the fattening business. The fattening business, please don't unmute because you distract the meeting. So the fattening business. The fattening business can be done in two ways. You can decide to produce your own fattening stock on farm. Producing your own fattening stock means that you will have to acquire parent stock, the animals that we just talked about in breeding. You have to go to a breeder and acquire parent stock. Okay? You have to go to the breeder and acquire parent stock. So you produce your own fattening stock. And after producing your own fattening stock, you fatten it until marketable slaughter weight and dispose it off. You take it to the market. You continue with the process. Another way you can do fattening is by outsourcing your fattening stock. You go outsource fattening stock from either multipliers or fattening stock. I don't know, even other breeders. Then fatten until marketable slaughter weight, and you dispose of. You take the animals to the market. So that is the two ways that you can handle the fattening business. But I should comment about the second alternative. The second alternative is still very complicated in East Africa. It is complicated because we don't have genuine breeders in the region. So it is very easy for you to fail to bulk the numbers, to get the numbers you want to fatten from one supplier. And the disadvantage of buying from different suppliers is that you can easily stock malnourished pigs, sick pigs, and most especially with the African swine fever. So imagine if you stocked pigs that are suffering from African swine fever. It means that you're going to lose the whole herd. So it is very important to produce your own fattening stock. And if you can't produce it, you must be sure that you're stocking your animals from one farm. You should not stock from different farms. Wycliffe, we are ready for the next slide. Okay, the third business, the third business. So this is a business that many people don't know about, but it is a business where you keep male pigs for semen collection. So you keep your own male pigs, collect semen from them, process the semen, and market the semen. So your single revenue channel is semen. The only product you put on the market is semen. So you make your money from the sale of semen. You can keep different boars depending on what the market prefers. So that's another business that you can do in pig farming. So we discussed three businesses, and that is breeding, fattening, and the boar stud business. Wycliffe? Okay, So what do you need to consider whenever you think about setting up a commercial pig farming business? Number one, you need to look at the resources available. I think it is very stressing to see many would have been successful farmers failing because they overstress the resources available. Someone has enough money to look after perfectly 20 sows, but they decide to stock 100 sows. So the unfortunate bit is that money or any resources that are necessary to run so hard cannot properly run a 100 so hard. And in the middle, you must face some challenges. And these challenges will make it very complicated for you to even recover the investment put in the pigs. So it is very important that you don't overburden the resources at hand. You should match your resources with the right number of animals so that you're able to properly look after these animals until your first sale. The hardest thing to do is to look after these animals until the first sale, because from the first sale, the money is collected, can be recycled into the next phases of production. But once you fail to look after these animals properly until first sale, then it is very difficult for you to even push, to even reach the other cycles and perfectly, look after them. So another very important issue is site selection. Where are you going to locate your farm? Now, for big farms, it is very important that you isolate the farm from neighborhoods, human neighborhoods, and neighborhoods to other pig farms. This is because you want to limit entry of disease-causing organisms. When you set up your farm next to, in a residential area, you have problems of people popping into the farm all the time and people messing up with your biosecurity protocols. So setting up this farm away from people keeps you at peace with the people so that you don't have to quarrel with people all the time and you don't have to fear the risk of spreading African swine fever into the farm. Okay? Quickly, if I don't know who is drawing lines into the presentations, whoever is doing that, please, you should stop. Thank you very much. Yeah, so you should be very conscious about the site, about where you're going to locate the farm. Even sometimes the smell from the pigs, if you really set it up in a residential area, might cause you challenges with your neighbors. And sometimes they might win you. So imagine pouring a lot of money into construction, stocking, etc. And then the authority demands you to shift the farm to a new location. It will not be a good experience for you. So be sure to select a site that is convenient for the kind of production that you're planning to set up. Most especially for people who are thinking about keeping 10 sows and above. 10 sows means that at any given time, the farm has about 100 plus pigs. So 100 plus pigs are not few pigs. Sometimes the noise they make and the amount of manure that is collected, if it is not properly disposed of, it can be a real challenge in a poor neighborhood. And as well, disposing it off is also very challenging in in a busy neighborhood. So another issue to think about, to consider, is the breed that you're going to use. It is a common practice in Uganda for people to just choose animals. They go to villages, look for any pig and choose that, take it to the farm, then later complain that the pigs are not performing according to their expectations. We must stock only definable genetics. You must stock animals whose performance can be defined. How much food do they need to make a kilogram of muscle, of live weight? How long does it take them to put on a kilogram of live weight? What is their killing out percentage? Like, from a certain weight of live weight, how much weight do I get that is valuable at the abattoir? So a pig that has a killing percentage of below 70% is a bad one. But how will you tell that if you're not keeping definable genetics? So whenever you think about using proper nutrition, you must also thinking about selecting definable genetics, definable breed lines to occupy your parent stock herd. Okay, I've got your message, Mr. Vincent. I've seen you're struggling, yes. The presentation will be available on YouTube, and I'll share the links on Facebook as well, and those in WhatsApp will also be able to access the presentation links. Okay, so another thing to look at is the choice of feedstuffs. The most challenging part of pig farming is nutrition. Excuse me. I was saying that the most challenging part of pig farming is feeding. Feeding accounts for more than 65% of the total production costs. So if you mess up feeding, you lose the business. When you underfeed, you lose the business. And when you feed incompetent genetics, you also lose the investment. Also, when you overfeed or when you feed unconsciously, you again lose the investment. So it is very important that you look at the choice of your feedstuffs. Use feedstuffs that are easily accessible and cheap and also easy to store. For startups, if you can grow your own feeds, you will save more than 30% of your total production, 30% of your total feed cost, most especially if you're able to grow your own energy source. And that should be maize. Maize is the best. So if you can grow your own maize, you will save up to more than 30% of your feed cost. So you must think about the choice of your feedstuffs and formulations. Today we have concentrates on market, and I really encourage you to check the New Science concentrates, not because part of the team, but as well, it is a feed solution that I can trust, that I've seen working. And since I also work in the abattoir, I've seen the animals that have been grown on the new science concentrates, and their performance in terms of pork quality and profitability. So those are things to really look out for. Another important issue is the choice of labor. It makes no meaning for you to set up a 100 sow herd, in fact, not 100, from 10 sows. You set up a sow herd of 10 and plus sows, and then employ non-skilled labor. It's very detrimental to your profitability. You must employ people who has some technical know-how in animal husbandry. Whenever you have a herd of more than 10 sows, like I told you, 10 sows means a production of more than 200 pigs a year, and at any given time you have about 100 plus animals on farm. So it is very important that you use skilled labor. Guys with a diploma in animal production, they only need some simple training and they can do a very nice job for you. Housing and equipment. So depending on the size of your farm, you need to choose equipment to make work easier for you. For example, if you use automated feeders, your workers don't need to keep pulling food every now and then in the troughs. And the wastage of the food also is very minimal. One of the most challenging factor in nutrition is wastage. Sometimes our cost of production is very high. Cost of production per kilogram of pork is very high because we lose some feed. The pigs do not ingest the feed, but we lose it in the store. We lose it by using poor feedstuffs. The following crates. Sometimes the pigs sleep over their young ones, they kill them, but yet we can avoid it by using following crates and etc. So these are things that we must, look at and make sure that we have the necessary equipment in place for us to run a successful pig farming enterprise for everyone starting. And for starters, I should not forget telling you that you need to be very clear about the space requirements. Wycliffe, you can point at this where you see sows 2.5 square meters. So as you can see, sows 2.5 square meters, the first one. As you can see, that is not, I don't know, for people who have been reading about pig farming and probably housing, you realize that I'm giving more space than it is required by the European standards. We forget one thing, that most of the standards we use in the pig sector are European standards. So we must consider our local situation and then be adaptive to what is conducive to the environment that we survive in. And a sow would be comfortable to stay in 2 square meters. You can allocate 2 square meters per sow, but for purposes of avoiding congestion, easy cleaning, and excessive generation of heat that might lead to heat stress, putting more space will be very important. So I give 2.5 square meters. The same applies to the finishers. You see the standard is about 0.8 square meters, but I raise it to 1.5 square meters. It can be below that, but that's if you can, manage the situations that I've just talked about. In Europe, the pig house are temperature regulated. The humidity is regulated. So the space is very ideal. But here we are working with our normal temperature and humidity. And you will agree with me that there is always some fluctuations. Sometimes it is hotter than the normal, sometimes colder than the normal, and sometimes the humidity is above the limits that we experience. So we need to cater for those inconsistencies, and that's why I really allocate more space than you might have come across in books and whichever. So I'm trying to be adaptive to our local environment. So for the piglets, no problem. Still, you will realize that 1 square meter is enough for 6 piglets, and I give them 2 square meters for the reasons that I earlier mentioned. But if you think that your environment is conducive enough, you can take the standard measures, the standard space arrangement, the 2 square meters, the 0.8 square meters for the finishers, and the 6 square meters per 6 piglets. As we move on, Wycliffe. I don't know whether this is my last slide, but I guess it is. So here we want to look at planning. Okay. With planning, Wycliffe, there is something that is, okay, great. With planning, it is very important that you start with what you're intending to do, what exactly you're intending to achieve. And this means that you're beginning to think of how many pigs, to think about the number of pigs you want to sell per a given period of time. You can bunch your cycles to follow maybe ever after 2 weeks, to go to take a bunch of pigs to the market ever after 2 weeks, or to take a bunch of pigs to the market ever after 1 week, ever after a given number of days. It is very possible. Pigs can be planned to follow at a given time, all in the same period, and to also mature and go to the market in a similar or related time frame. So it is very easy. It is very common for most beginners to only work with 1 cycle. Sorry, not cycle, 1 bunch. Like someone has 10 sows and they decide to produce 100 pigs, 100 plus pigs, and then they have to sell to the market 100 pigs ever after a given period of time. It would be more ideal if you batched the 10 sows into at least 5 batches and have 2 sows producing every month, so that you can have pigs for sale, all pigs to take to the market every month. You have an activity. You have an activity taking place on farm every month. That's the importance of batching. You're working with a small group of animals, and so you're able to even set up a small following unit, work with it, because you know that you use it at least once a month, than constructing a following unit for 10 sows. You can construct one for 2 sows if you have 10 sows, and then batch these animals to be in the following unit every month for 5 months. It is more ideal and easy for you to manage the farm. So you can't batch except when you know the goal to achieve. How many pigs you want to sell, where you want to sell. And by the way, if you sell in batches, even your market will be happy. The market is happy with the consistent suppliers, not people who will supply twice a year because they are keeping 100 pigs, then twice a year they supply and they are out of stock until next time. So it is very important that you batch your animals, your breed, your parent stock, so that you're able to be in the market all the time. So in the after batching, then you think about the nutrition. How are you going to handle the feeding of your sows, the feeding of the boar in case you have any on farm, and the feeding of your commercial herd, the animals that you're fattening. The animals that you're fattening for slaughter. I request you guys, please don't mute. We will unmute when it is time for questions, but don't unmute so that you don't interrupt the meeting. Okay, so you need to think about the nutrition, how you're going to feed, the troughs, and everything necessary to make sure that you have access to proper nutrition. The health. This starts with the biosecurity. How are you planning to guard your farm from African swine fever? It's the biggest threat. And after African swine fever, how are you planning to stop, to limit contaminations inside the farm, the cross-contamination? You need to set up a very clear biosecurity protocol, and this must be known by your employees. It should also be known to your neighborhood and your visitors, if at all you have to allow any visitor into your farm. So these biosecurity protocols are very important, and they are the beginning. It is the first thing for you to think about when you're designing your healthy plan. Then think about vaccination. When you're designing your healthy plan, you start with the preventive measures, proper biosecurity, vaccination, and making sure that the animals are treated whenever there is a disease. Think about breeding. You must write a breeding plan. Are you going to use artificial insemination? Is it going to be natural insemination? If it is either of the two, then how is it going to operate? How are you going to ensure that semen is properly stored on farm if it is outsourced? And how are you going to outsource it? How are you going to transport it from your source to the farm? These are things that must be in your breeding plan. The general management. You have to think about record keeping. Okay? Are you going to use templates, or you're going to buy a software and manage the records? Which kind of records are you going to manage? And what indicators are you going to look at? These are details that your farm workers must be aware of. And how are you going to do data collection? And how are you going to use this data? We are going to look into that. We are going to expound more on that when we are looking at record keeping in one of these sessions that we are going to be running. So from the production plan, it is the production plan to inform every other part of the plan. You can't go for architectural plans before you have a proper production plan. And the production plan should correlate with your marketing plan. So after the production plan, you have to look at the architectural plans. The pig houses, you know, if you go into specialized housing, you need the dry sow house, you need the following house, you may need a stall house to easy management. You want to check for pregnancy, you need to do some vaccinations. Stalls simplify the work instead of struggling to restrain the pigs. So after thinking about the pig houses, then think about the workers' houses, the store, the toilets, the washrooms, because each visitor accessing the farm must take shower. We must be very serious with African swine fever. And for you who are just beginning or who are planning to begin, or those who are already in the business, you must be informed that African swine fever is killing pigs, even today. I've had many of my friends, clients losing pigs. So you don't want to be a victim. African swine fever is preventable. And we can only successfully prevent it if we are able to implement strict and proper biosecurity measures. So the last one you would look at is the marketing plan. And this you must decide. Like I said, it should come from the production plan. Are you a breeder who is selling live pigs? Are you a fattener who is selling pork? So you each design your marketing plans differently. If you're a breeder, then your approach must be different from the person whose product is pork, or from the person from the farm whose product is boar semen. So you must approach the market planning basing on the product you're putting on the market. So you check the product, you make a good price. I'm saying people who are into breeding, it is unwise for you to really expensively sell your genetics. It's not wise because competition will eat you up. It is better for you to really give your consumers, your customers, a good price from the start so that you develop loyalty. Otherwise, when a cheaper option comes in the market, you lose it. So it is better to correctly price your breeding stock. And for people who are selling pork, the same story. You should price to profit, but not to be very expensive, because if you don't price comparing to what is happening in the market, you might find selling very difficult at the end of the day. So how are you planning to do the promotion? I find social media a very important avenue for promoting our products these days. Whether you're able to pay the owners of these social media platforms or not, social media is a very important platforms in promotion, cheaper promotion of your products. So make good use of it. And many other promotional engagements. Invite these guys who are doing programs on TV, programs on agriculture on TV. Sometimes they do those recordings for free. And such expose you to your market. Okay. Those are things, we are in a high-tech generation, and those are things that you can do to really be over others. So how are you going to market? You need sometimes for pork traders, you need to move here and there. Most of the premium markets import pork. So if you can convince these markets that you have quality, you're consistent in supply, etc., you'll end up killing it. Wycliffe, I'm not sure, but I think that is the last slide. That is the last slide. So
yeah, sure, it's the last one.
Great. So I don't know, I should entertain questions. We have a lot of other questions. People shared questions, but I don't want to make this first session very lengthy. So I might not answer the questions. I have over 60 questions to attend to. And I think we need to just get a session and attend to those questions, because most of them are very different from what we are looking at today. And also some of those questions will be answered in the next sessions. So there is no need to worry. I will just pick some questions that are not answered. The platform for asking questions will remain open for all the sessions. Then I will pick those questions that are not answered in the presentations and host another Zoom meeting for me to answer all those questions. For now, I welcome questions, and I'll be attending to maybe 10 or less questions, and we can close today's session. I don't want to make it so lengthy. Then we will have a more lengthy session next week on Saturday for those who will afford to attend. You can raise up your hand and I'll pick you. Then you unmute and ask your question. I'll not be able to read from the chat, so you're okay to put up your hand. I don't know whether you know how to do it. Then I'll pick you to ask your question. But in case I've been convincing, you've understood everything, then no need of asking questions. We can just end this session. Anyway, someone didn't understand. So Mr. James Lubinga, please go ahead and ask.
Thank you so much, Christopher, for the knowledge and your endless support. My question is on breeding. If I want to become a breeder, can't I use F2 and F3 to make breeds, to make items which I can sell to other people who want to breed? Because I think that's what is going on around the country, whereby you go buy pigs from another person who has been having sows for about a year or two and is selling to you to go also and breed, and you also sell something like that. So how can one become a breeder without getting from South Africa? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, James. It is such a nice question. And it is unfortunate to, by the way, tell you that we don't have a breeder, a pig breeder in the country currently. And people are just trying to bridge the gap. I really applaud what they are doing. It's a good job. They are trying to bridge the gap, because instead of using inferior genetics that is local available, I prefer calling it average genetics, that has been over inbred, that has been crossed, without any planning. It's better to use an F2 to produce animals for slaughter. And I would be genuine and true to you, that it is not proper for you to use F3s. If you've decided to use F2 generation to produce your fattening stock, please don't use the F3 for breeding. It will be detrimental because, like you've seen, I request you, Wycliffe, to push back to the pyramid that we looked at. Like you've seen the pyramid, we work from up coming down. So whenever you try to come from, down going up, the hybrid vigor is lost. And so what you want from these superior quality animals will completely be lost. And you will go back to the average, to the performance of our average animals that we have on the market. So you have no option, and breeding means sale of either F1 generation or sale of fattening stock. But beyond that, there is, I don't advise you to really keep re-multiplying these animals, re-breeding them. They will lose their superiority. I don't know whether I've answered you. So in that case, at some point, if you're looking at setting up a big farm, 50 sows and above is big. It's better for you to do an importation. You have no shortcut at the moment. The only option available is importation. But if you're working with anything between 1 to 50, you can go ahead and use the F2s. But trust me, you must be with a very strong replacement strategy, because out of the 50, you will have inferior mothers. So the cost of replacement will be quite high, but it will be ideal than stocking the normal genetics on market or going for F3s. Thank you very much. Hope I answered you. I pray you've understood, but we have a session on genetics. I'll try to really be very slow so that we understand these simple things and then make proper choices when we are, proper decisions when we are setting up our farms. The name is difficult to read, Emote. I don't know whether I pronounced it right, but you can go ahead and ask your question.
Thanks a lot, Christopher. You've pronounced the name very right, and I really appreciate your insight on the pig breeding business. My question is, as a beginner, what kind of structures do you advise? Do you advise the concrete structure or the deep litter IMO system?
Okay, thank you for your question, Imote. I believe, I don't remember, maybe we have a session on housing. I don't remember. But anyway, you're asking for my opinion, and I'll tell you my opinion. When you're dealing with small numbers of pigs in a congested environment, I would say in a poor neighborhood, where you have, many neighbors, working with IMO, the indigenous microorganism kind of flora is ideal. Is ideal because in case of any risk, the loss is not that big. But when you're working with large numbers of pigs, for example, you're keeping 5+ sows, it is very difficult for you to use an IMO house, because in large populations, disinfection is very important. You want to work in a sanitized environment. You always want to make sure that there is no chance given to disease-causing organisms. So you will always be disinfecting. And you can't easily disinfect an IMO environment. You know, they are indigenous microorganisms. They are bacteria. We call good bacteria. They don't cause disease, but they can die if you spray disinfectants on them. They can also lose their life. So since it is difficult to sanitize an IMO environment, it is not an ideal housing option for a large holder pig farmer. But for a small farm, it is something you can work out with no major issues. Hope I answered you, Emmet.
That is well answered, Chris, because my aim was to start backwards, because I had an aim of starting maybe on a monthly basis that I produce maybe 30 pigs to the market.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends. You can start with IMO, and as you grow big, think about doing a conventional structure.
Okay. Okay, thanks a lot.
You're welcome. Thanks too for participating. I'm very glad that we had very few questions. And that means that I probably did a good job, or
Hello?
I did not convince you. Yes,
Hello?
Uncle Tash, Tash, I don't know. You want to ask a question?
Yes, Uncle Tush.
Yes, Uncle Tush.
Now, I've read a lot about housing structures and blah, blah, blah. What is your opinion on using IMO liquid on concrete floors? So like, if I have a concrete floor, then I apply IMO liquid to disinfect and clean the place. Then probably also, could I use it as, could I incorporate it in the drinking water for the pigs, or they can use it to wash the pigs? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Uncle Tush. You know, IMO, like I said, those organisms can easily be killed by detergents. So sprinkling them on the floor, I don't know what you want to achieve, but if you wash the pig houses with detergents, then you're wasting, because I don't know, you'll not achieve what you want to achieve.
What I was trying to put ask, if I'm not to use detergent and I use that IMO liquid, will it make it more will it sound better for my biosecurity instances? Because at times these detergents have chemical compositions which are not healthy.
Yeah, so, I understand, but you always sanitize when you think it is necessary. That's when we sanitize. So whenever you think it is necessary, you have to sanitize. And the most unfortunate bit is when you must sanitize and you can't, because the environment contains living organisms that you don't want to die. So you sanitize when necessary. Hope I've answered you. And on the question of the water, I don't see the importance, you know, basing on the science, these are bacteria. And maybe if they have any function to do in the gut of the pig, but the advantage is, don't want to rule it out. Maybe I don't know, but I'm not certain. So I don't want to just rule it out but I will also make some more research about it. I don't know why you should put IMO in the drinking water. I don't see the advantage. I personally don't see the advantage given the fact that these are bacteria. And there, you know, IMO is very different from probiotics. I've ever written something about this. Probiotics are selected. They are specific bacteria and they are selected for given purposes. But IMOs, a collection of bacteria, not identified. And their purpose in the gut is also unidentified. So I don't see any function. So I don't know, but I'll try to keep looking for information about that. But scientifically and technically, when you look at it, there is no importance that you can notice. So let's go to Banula.
Thank you so much, Chris, for a very informative session. Still on the topic of the housing and the floors, do you have any tips on how to do a concrete floor that would end up being more lasting than the usual ones? Because one of the challenges that people that have used concrete floors seem to point out is that the pigs sort of dig into it and they end up cracking so easily, which is what made me think IMO would be a solution. But I hear you about when you say that it will be complicated to disinfect. So what advice would you give to someone that at the point where they have like a big hut and they're using a concrete floor but don't want to do repairs every now and then? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Banula. Given the fact that that is a lengthy discussion, I request that we discuss it during the session on housing so that we, you know, dig into deeper into that and get to understand. That's what I think, because it really needs a lengthy explanation. But we have a session on housing, so we will be tackling that in detail, if you don't mind.
Right.
Thank you very much.
You.
Nokia 22.2.
Hello. Thank you so much, Mr. for the lesson, but I came in a bit late. I wanted you to help me a little bit about the Fs. I've heard you talking about F1. It's better to use F1, better to use F2, F3. I wanted to know more about that. I never got anything you were talking about it. So just wanted to explain more a little bit about the F. What are they about?
Yeah, sorry, you came in late.
Yeah.
And, I don't know how to assist, but we have another session on genetics, which I think will make you understand more about F1s and F2s. So today we are dealing mainly with beginners. So if you don't mind, I still request you to put that question to the session on genetics so that we dig it deeper and you get to understand.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I want to thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for taking part in this training, in this coaching session. I don't want to call it a training. I request you to keep asking questions. We will have a session to answer, mostly those that will not be answered during these presentations. Yeah, and also I remind you that we will be using the same login details for the upcoming meetings as well. Time is 5 p.m. If we have a lot to handle, we will be ending at 7 p.m. But we will always try to end a little more earlier so that everybody can get a chance to go attend to other activities. I thank you very much. Thank you, Wycliffe, for the assistance you've given. And
You're
thank
welcome.
you, everybody, for making time for this coaching session. Until next time, I wish you a nice weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you so
Nice
much.
weekend.
Bye-bye. Nice weekend.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.